We are going to be looking at the best differentials for Game Week 5. Listen, we want you lot to write your differentials down below in the comments. Help the community out, and we're helping you out. Let's get straight into it. Okay, so for defenders, Tyrone, you have picked Juve. And I'm a massive fan of Juve, but I was surprised you went there this week. Explain your reasoning.
I actually think when you look at Crystal Palace, I think they're getting a bit tired, a bit leggy. And one big thing that the manager Glasner come out and said is obviously Jean-Philippe Mateta, he's tired. He's looking a bit jaded. I don't know if you see the chance he missed the other day in like the 94th minute. 3 yards, 4 yards out, open goal, shanked it left foot. That should be like an easy finish for someone like Jean-Philippe. And I think the fact that he's mentioned that he's tired, he's leggy, he is going to play. But I think the spark has just come off Crystal Palace a bit. I think defensively, they've actually looked quite solid. And obviously, I can understand your logic for going for Lacroix. But I think if West Ham are going to get attacking returns, I think Juice a very important part of that attacking system, flying up and down the wing. He gets forward. Defensive contributions, points per match at the moment, we can see obviously is okay. But I think that when Juve plays, he's been unlucky not to have more points than what his points give him. Like he had a shot against Nottingham Forest and he got like blocked. It was going in. Like he's had a couple of them moments where he could have goals or assists and he hasn't. And I just feel like, West Ham playing a back five, coming up against, this Crystal Palace team that are not that great at the moment. Question mark whether Wharton will be back. Jean-Philippe Mateta, obviously Sarr's out. I just think it's a good chance for maybe a lower scoring game and maybe West Ham can nick it 1-0. So I'm going to go with Juve.
Interesting selection. I think one thing we've realized with Graham Potter over the last couple of games, he has been quite flexible in terms of he has used the back four a couple of times. Yeah. The reason I think I prefer Lacroix, and I'm obviously going to say I prefer my pick is I feel like Crystal Palace are defensively very, very resolute. I feel like Lacroix's baseline in terms of his floor is probably a bit higher because we know how well he does for DEFCON. I feel like Juve, his attacking potential could be there, but I feel like, listen, West Ham as a defensive unit within themselves are not very, very good. Also, another thing, West Ham are shocking at defending corners. Like we saw it the other day against Tottenham, like they could have conceded probably at 3 or 4 corners. And Lacroix is obviously very, very good in the air. So that's why I've gone to Lacroix. You've gone to Juve. Listen.
Do you not think that Crystal Palace are likely to concede in this game potentially with Bowen, Paqueta, when you look at because I feel like when you've got someone like Adam Morton in your team, he helps you control the ball and helps you be a bit more solid defensively because he retains the ball well and ticks it over. But they actually have lost that sort of catalyst in midfield. So now I don't think they're going to be able to maintain the ball as much as they, or as well as they should, like they did against Villa away, as an example.
I think that's a valid point, but at the same time, I just don't trust West Ham's attack to score. Like they haven't shown me enough to say, yeah, we're going to score at least 1 or 2 goals under Graham Potter every game, which is why I'm going to back my Crystal Palace, man. You're going to back your West Ham, man.
Yeah, I'm going to back my West Ham, man. And I think that West Ham with Somerville back and a bit of spark, I think they will score.
And Ty, as we know, there's one way to decide it, and that is for the points on the weekend. So we will see. But let's get on to our midfielders.
So the players we're going to look at for midfield, as we can see, I've picked Morgan Gibbs-White. You've picked Harvey Elliott. I think Morgan Gibbs-White is a good pick for me, and I think it's a differential because a lot of people don't really have him. I think this year he's not been spoken about in terms of Morgan Gibbs-White going forward. It's more just Chris Wood, and that's it. Defensive contributions in terms of Murillo, Nico Williams, that's who people had. It was either Chris Wood or the defense. No one's really spoke about the midfield. Elliot Anderson is obviously in there. People's 5.5 million to hopefully get DEFCON points, which he's missed out on. But we're talking about Gibbs-White, and I think he was rested in the Carabao Cup game, come on and got 30 minutes, which they were knocked out into Swansea. But I do feel like this is the type of game where we're not going to see a Burnley sit back as much as they did against Liverpool. What they did against Liverpool was literally 11 men behind the ball, including the goalkeeper, and come and break us down. I feel like the fans will want more now. They won't want to go into this week playing at home at Turf Moor and seeing them sit as deep. I think they're going to try and take it to Forest, especially seeing what Forest have been like defensively as well. They'll feel that they can get at them. And I feel like Forest, and what we've seen of the best of Forest, is getting in transition. And, you've got players like McAtee now coming in. You've got Amari Hutchinson. You've got Callum Owendo. You've obviously got Chris Wood. You've got Igor Jesus. He had a good game in midweek. But I feel like Gibbs-White is the catalyst for that. He's the guy that's going to be the driving force. Just, how do I call it? You see Morgan Rogers for Aston Villa. He's the guy in between the midfield and the striker. Morgan Gibbs-White is that for Nottingham Forest. And Gibbs-White doesn't normally score a lot of points consistently, but he can load up in games. And I think this game against Burnley is the type of game he can return in. So I'm going to go with Gibbs-White, and Nottingham Forest need a win under Ange.
Ty, you know what? That was a very, very good pick when you said Gibbs White. And I'm slightly jealous because I've gone with a more riskier option in Harvey Elliott. 0.5% ownership. Aston Villa haven't scored a goal in the Premier League. They've been shocking. But could Harvey Elliott's introduction give Aston Villa something else? Could he give them that creative spark that they need? He, of course, scored in the League Cup for them this weekend. Is he going to start on the weekend? I'm hoping so.
I
But I'm
think
not
they
too sure.
need him. I think he starts because Villa are in a bad run of form. They need him. And again, how we spoke about Morgan Rogers and like Gibbs White and them type of players, Cole Palmer, he could be the link between the midfield, which has looked a bit placid, and Ollie Watkins, who's starving right now.
Yeah, so listen, it is a bit of a risky one because we are hoping he starts. You probably gone with the most safer pick in Gibbs White.
We've got 2 away games. You know, one's
Mm.
and they're both against promoted teams. Sunderland look decent at home and scoring goals, but they can also concede. Burnley are more robust defensively than Sunderland.
Yeah. So you know what? I think this will be a very, very close, like let's say, matchup going into this weekend. I want to see what the comments are saying with like the midfield differential as well, because it is a very, very tough week in terms of picking differential this week. But you know what? Let's get on to the attackers because we have another face-up. Okay, so let's look at the attackers now. And Ty, you have been very, very sneaky. You went with Ivan Nilsson, who I had last week. Explain your reasoning now.
Well, firstly, I'm hoping he gets more points than he got for you. So that's what I'm going to look at. But, you know, with Evan Nilsson, we already said he's a bit of a streaky player. Like, he can have moments where he can contribute in 3-4 games in a row. People rush to put him in, and then he'll blank. And you're like, what's going on? But, you know, with Semenyo on penalties now, that is a bit of a concern. But I feel like Semenyo is in such good form. If Semenyo is a player that people are looking at to contribute in FPL, then who's playing alongside him? It's Evan Nilsson. He's somehow got to fit into this, whether it's goals, assists, Semenyo playing him in, him playing Semenyo in. It's got to work. And I feel like the big decision for me that actually included Evan Nilsson was the fact that you've gone with Waltmeier, which is Newcastle, but they played in the Champions League against Barcelona last night. So I'm going to go with Evan Nilsson to play against a tired-legged Newcastle team. And I'm hoping that he can take and capitalize on the moments that Newcastle have put into that Barcelona game. And I'm hoping they have a one-off fixture where Evan Nilsson can get the points.
You know what? The matchup thing in terms of Newcastle obviously playing Barcelona is a very, very good point because we know, listen, Newcastle are, let's say, fresh into the Champions League. Their players probably don't know necessarily how to cope with that, obviously, weekday fixture with a weekend fixture. And we saw them a couple of years ago really struggle with that. So let's see how they do this year. But I think when you watch Wolfsman, as I said, like his physical presence, I feel like suits the Premier League very well. I feel like getting your, let's say, opening goals as a striker is very, very important. And he got that last week in the Premier League. So I'm hoping that he has the confidence now to like kind of build onto it, if that makes sense, innit? I feel like Bournemouth is a difficult matchup.
Go on, carry on.
No, I was going to say, I feel like Bournemouth is a difficult matchup. And if I was to pick a team that are going to win the game, I think it will be Bournemouth, to be honest. But at the same time, as I said, we're just picking a player who we think is good. Is going to return. And I think Waltermart has a very good chance.
I got a question for you then. Based off both these players, Waltermart was subbed off in about a 60-something minute last week. Evan Nilsson gets subbed off for Krupi Jr. sometimes as well. Who do you think gets more minutes going into this game on the weekend? Because Evan Nilsson, obviously, I think with the week's rest plays more minutes. Waltermart, if he plays, obviously, which we know, not if he played against Barcelona. So I don't think he's guaranteed to get the full 90.
Yeah, I don't think he's guaranteed necessarily to get the full 90 either because he's still, let's say, adjusting to Newcastle, adjusting to the Premier League. But at the same time, I expect him to get around 75 minutes. And I thought in 75 minutes, could he create an impact against Bournemouth? I think the answer is yes. And also at the same time, Ty, you need to know, this week is very, very hard for differentials. I feel like the matchups are not the best in terms of picking players. Yeah, the only other option we were probably looking at was, let's say, a Thiago for Brentford against Fulham. But do you really want to go there?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe some people in the comments might.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like you said already, in the first round, now we're in the second round. Let's let the points decide.
So now let's look at our overall scores from game week 4. And Ty, you went with Anderson, he got 10 points. You had a nice seed in terms of defenders because I had Shaw who got 8. Midfielders, you went with Harvey Barnes, he got 3. I went with Madueke, who got 3. And I'll be honest, I feel like I was very, very unlucky not to get more with Madueke. But Muniz versus Ivan Nilsson was the difference. Muniz got 2 points. Ivan Nilsson obviously won a penalty. Gave him 5 points, meaning I had 16 points last week. You had 15. How do you feel, Ty? You're 1-0 down.
I'm a gracious loser normally, but I don't think like I deserve this defeat. I feel like Muniz had some chances for Fulham and all I needed was one return and literally I'm above you. So, you know, one return in it, but, you know, you won. It's a long season. You know, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we go again.
But you know what? I want to give a shout out to a guy called Babos1 in the comments. Like, I probably butchered that, by the way. He had Dan Burn as a differential, which obviously Newcastle kept a clean sheet. But more importantly, for attackers, he picked Waltermard.
Yeah, good pick.
And
I
obviously
did
he
consider
scored.
him, didn't I? I
Yeah.
did consider him, but because I had Harvey Barnes, I thought Walter he might only get a few, you know, he might get 60 minutes. I thought Barnes would play longer. But, you know, Barnes could have returned, by the way. There was an opportunity, a big opportunity for him, and then it didn't work out with Jacob Murphy and stuff. So, yeah, big up Babos, if that's what you call him as well. He's watching the channel. Make sure you are liking and subscribing, and let us know your differentials for this week.
Yeah, so I'm 1-0 up. Let's see how we do in game week 5. But before we end the video, make sure you guys like the video, comment your differential, subscribe to the channel, and we will be back soon.